Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Sports Media. My name is Ryan Linkletter, and I am back with Brady Penn. It has been a long time since the Blitz angle has been back, and here we are. A few days ahead of Green Bay, we will be down covering the draft live for you guys, getting exclusive in-person interviews with fans, players, whatever you guys need. We will be there, providing it on site. We will be on Radio Row for you guys there. Brady, definitely going to be an exciting time down in Green Bay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got that experience up in New Orleans. We weren't at Radio Row, though. This time we'll be around there for the draft. And who knows? Maybe we'll be able to run into some people and get some interesting people involved with Blitz Sports Media this week. But we'll see. We'll see what the week holds.
100%. I'm looking forward to it. But the most important event this week, the NFL draft. We got you guys covered. We got a full first round mock draft going over all the players that we think are going to land in the first round, and then potentially some of the best available players heading into round two. So let's hop right into this video and get into our first round mock draft. All right, so heading into the first round, the Tennessee Titans are out. Basically, how we're going to do this, I am going to go through and do the odd number picks. Brady's going to go through and do the even number picks here. When we get this thing going, I am going to start with the Tennessee Titans at number 1 overall. Brady, this is probably the easiest pick in the draft. It's going to be Cam Ward here from Miami. Ward has been basically the most talented prospect, I think, in terms of quarterback play between him and the other guys in this draft that make him the clear-cut number 1 overall pick in terms of just a pure talent level. Ward does kind of remind me a little bit of Ben Roethlisberger with his movement, stuff like that. And he can improvise pretty well. Definitely not a surefire first round prospect like we've had in the past. Like last year, we had 3 really good quarterbacks coming out of college. Ward is not the level of those 3 prospects, but he's a really good prospect, Brady. I think it's the true number 1 overall pick heading to the Tennessee Titans. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. And this seems like a pretty obvious one to me. And then for the Cleveland Browns, I think this one's obvious as well. The way that Andrew Berry has talked about this player extensively, I think it's Travis Hunter, 100%. And Travis Hunter is the best player in the draft, in my opinion. You take a look at our big board, our consensus big board for Blitz Sports Media that will be dropping. Travis Hunter is our number 1 overall player, and he's not dropping past number 2. I saw some fan bases this offseason that thought that he could drop to them at 6, he could drop to 5. There is no chance.
No chance.
He is a unicorn. He's going to instantly provide a great cornerback tandem with Denzel Ward, and then he's also going to pair up at wide receiver with Jerry Jeudy. Now, the question is who's going to be throwing the rock? If it's Kenny Pickett, I don't know, but we'll see what happens. Kirk Cousins still in the mix in Cleveland as well. Could go with a guy like Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe early on in round 2, I think, but Travis Hunter's the pick here. He's got to be round 1, pick 2, and if the Titans didn't need a quarterback, he'd for sure be number 1 because he is the best player in this draft.
100%. Travis Hunter is definitely a unicorn. Basically, the best cornerback, the best wide receiver in this draft. I think that's the best way of describing it. We'll see how much he can go on both sides of the ball, but you go and get that player at number 2 overall, and you have a great talent alongside Myles Garrett on that team. It's definitely very exciting for Cleveland. And you don't reach on a quarterback you're not sure about in Shedeur Sanders or some of the other quarterbacks in this draft. You wait and see in terms of that. Heading into pick 3, I think this is where things are a little murky right now. The New York Giants went out and added veteran quarterbacks this offseason. Definitely made it a very murky situation what they want to do in the draft in terms of that. But there are rumors they could potentially snag Shedeur at 3. The odds in the books are saying it's definitely very possible as well. I think they're going to be heading in a different direction. And they're going to be trying to build one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. I know they have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau already for that defensive line, as well as Dexter Lawrence on the inside. But Abdul Carter is my personal number 1 player in this draft. I absolutely love Travis Hunter as a player, but I think Abdul Carter's value in terms of being an edge rusher, he's just an absolute playmaker on the defensive side of the ball. I think he does not go past 3. And if he does somehow slip past 3, the Patriots would absolutely snag him up as quick as possible at 4. Carter's an absolute monster. I think he truly is the best pure defensive player in this draft. What do you think, Brady?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Carter too. I do have some people that I'm plugged in with that say that the Giants could be going in another direction. They could be looking to trade the pick to a team that feels desperate.
Which would be a pretty smart move
Shedeur.
considering the fact who they already have on the defensive line.
Yeah, but if they do stay put, I think it is Abdul. Not really any other. I don't think you can justify taking a tackle at 3. And I'm going to go here in a minute to explain why I wouldn't take a tackle at 4, even though I think it could happen, but Abdul Carter to the Giants. That being said, I have heard from some people that I do know that are plugged in a little bit. Abdul to the Patriots is could be happening, but I'm not just saying that as a Patriots fan. Like, these are legitimate NFL people that have told me this, and I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I think it's a safe bet right now to pencil in Carter at 3.
100%, 100%. Now, who are we looking at for if Abdul Carter is not available?
I really don't like it. I understand the thought behind it, but for the Patriots, I think that it will be Will Campbell. I think they are going to go tackle, and if they don't go tackle, they're going to go with an edge rusher per reports. I think that also speaks to them thinking that Carter could be there, but if he's not, they're going to go Will Campbell, I think. And I personally would go with Tet McMillan. I would get another weapon for Drake May. I don't think it's enough to go into the season with just Stephon Diggs off an ACL and Pop Douglas and hoping that Jalen Polk has a better year too. But I think it's going to be Will Campbell. And I understand it's easier to find a great receiver in round 2 and 3 than it is to find a great tackle in rounds 2 or 3. And the offensive line was abysmal last year. I think that could be the thinking. Mike Vrabel, an old school type of guy that's going to be build the trenches. You already saw it a little bit this offseason in free agency with the D line and linebackers. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be Will Campbell here to New England.
Yeah, and I think Campbell definitely a very good prospect. Personally, I think the talk about him and his his arm length is definitely a little bit overblown. Potentially him moving into the interior offensive line. Someone asked him that question in the draft. He said no chance of moving in the interior offensive line. I'm not necessarily sure it affects his stock. Campbell definitely has the biggest pedigree out of all the offensive tackles available. And then heading into the 5th position in the draft, I think this one is pretty clear cut at this point. If Abdul Carter is somehow available at 5, which I think there's no chance, the Jaguars would absolutely snag him up and pair him with Josh Hines Allen. I think they're going Mason Graham here. Graham is an absolute beast on the interior offensive line. So you look at those PFF grades from the past 2 years, absolutely dominated in the Big Ten. He's a very good run defender. He's developing as a pass rusher, increased his sack totals each year, his hurries, his quarterback hits, all that good stuff. Had a 13.8% pass rush win rate from the interior. And this is a player that the Jacksonville Jaguars need on the interior of their defensive line to start rebuilding a defense that really struggled last year. They have some talented playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Now they need to build up that defense. I think it starts with Mason Graham and the interior defensive line.
Yeah, and if you are a betting man, I do want to say those same sources that I have, they did tell me Graham to the Jaguars is the lock of the first round. They said that this is 1,000% set in stone. And yeah, I definitely Mason Graham. If you want to put something together for draft night, I would include Mason Graham with the 5th pick.
Cam Ward
Or
101, Mason Graham 105 parlay.
Yeah, I don't even think you can parlay Cam Ward than anything. I was looking, but Mason Graham, this is right around the range I have for him. He's my number 7 on my board personally, so 5 not a reach at all. And then for the Raiders, I'm a little bit torn here because it seems like Ashton Genty should be the pick. Ashton Genty is 8th on my board, and he's higher than anybody else that could go with the other choice I think they could make. But now I saw the odds have shifted dramatically for the Raiders taking an offensive lineman at 6. So some people are thinking Armand Membu out of Missouri. I'm still going with Genty though, man. Genty can add to an offense a really explosive rookie element after they saw what Brock Bowers did last year. You got Geno Smith coming in. You got Pete Carroll, who's obviously an older coach. He wants to win now. He's not trying to build for the future with an offensive line foundational pick. He wants to go out and compete now in the AFC West. Ashton Genty, I mean, look at these grades. Look at the numbers. They speak for themselves. Heisman runner-up, single season rushing yards record if you include the playoffs. And he just is really, really, really hard to tackle. And I think that some of this could depend. I do want to throw this out there for those of you that haven't seen the reports of Colton Miller, the Raiders star left tackle, not agreeing to a contract with the Raiders. He's in sort of a holdout right now. I could see some sort of type of deal where the Patriots and the Raiders make a move. Patriots get their tackle in Colton Miller, and then they get pick number 6. They give 4 to the Raiders. I could see something like that where the Raiders shift up. Patriots are at 6 to pick a receiver or a D lineman, maybe a Jalen Walker, something like that. But the way it stands right now, I'm going Ashton Genty at 6.
Yeah, Genty's an absolute superstar. I mean, there's not much more to say about him. He's a great prospect coming out, and I think it's very hard to see the Raiders passing up on a position that they spent no time addressing this offseason. So I think Genti just makes so much sense. Now, 7's another murky pick here. The Jets are a team that have a lot of needs, I think, in terms of wide receiver depth. They don't necessarily have established tackles, despite them trying to establish that position in the draft last year. Defensively, they have a lot of good players still. And then the quarterback at Justin Fields. I've seen a lot of people saying Armand Membu to the Jets, and I'm agreeing with that very much so. Membu is a great player, really good pass blocker and run blocker. I think if you're trying to build an offensive line in New York, I think you go with this guy. I don't really like the other players available for them right now. I think Ted McMillan would be a good fit, but with Justin Fields at quarterback, doesn't make a ton of sense. So I'm going with Membu there.
Yeah, and Garrett Wilson you still have at wide receiver. You don't have the biggest glaring need at receiver. It is a need, but I don't think so. So I do want to say this for the Jets. They are in a very similar position to the New England Patriots in the fact that they've just brought in a old school, hard-nosed defensive guy as the head coach. They already have both of them already have an all-pro young cornerback, Christian Gonzalez, Sauce Gardner. So that's why I've seen some people saying Will Johnson to the Jets. That's why I don't think so. Some people might think that Aaron Glenn wants to go get that defensive playmaker, especially in the secondary. But I think it's Membu too, because you've already got the corner. You want to build the trenches because you are kind of that tough type coach like a Mike Vrabel. So I think the Patriots and Jets are in very similar situations and are going to end up with similar picks.
100%. So who we got at 8, Brady?
At 8, I'm thinking our buddy Nick, roll coverage. He's not going to be happy with this one. I see that he is an absolute hater of this guy, but you're going to have to scroll down a little bit. I think it's going to be Jalen Walker if they don't trade down. I don't think we're going to be doing trades in this, but I think it will be Jalen Walker, who, by the way, I'm not sure why he's so low on the board here, but he's from North Carolina. They've been pretty heavy on the fact publicly that if they don't trade down, they're going to go defense. I think that a lot of Panthers fans would love to see Ted McMillan get some offensive help for Bryce Young, but it seems to me that they're going to try and build defensively. Jalen Walker, I'm not 100% sure about him. I actually have him a little bit lower on my board than PFF does right here. I've got him as my 23rd prospect, but I see the vision with him. The thing with Jalen Walker is he's not a finished product by any means. He's learned throughout college how to play off-ball linebacker. He's learned how to rush the passer. He's not a great run defender yet, but he's kind of good at a lot of things. Not great at one particular thing, but he's extremely athletic. He's got a lot of playing time over the last few years on one of the best defenses in the country that consistently produces good NFL talent. And I think that maybe you're helmet scouting here with Jalen Walker, but there are things to like on his film, especially later in the season. And as a pass rusher, even though I don't think he's the best pass rusher on this Georgia defense that could go here in the first round, Jalen Walker, I think, is the pick for the Carolina Panthers here.
Man, we have our first official reach of the draft, I think, with Jalen Walker. And, we get one every year inside the top 10. I think, personally, if I'm the Panthers at 8, this is the guy that I'd be looking at. We'll talk about him in a second here. But man, it would be crazy if the Carolina Panthers, I think they do go defense. If they get Jalen Walker at 8, you're right. Nick is going to be very upset with that pick. Heading into 9 here, the Saints are in a horrible position, Brady. We know this. Even worse position now with Derek Carr being out. I think they're handcuffed. I truly do. I think they're handcuffed into picking Shedeur Sanders. And I don't think there's any way that they don't go through this draft and think to themselves, I just can't walk away without a quarterback. Now, they might not pick Shedeur here. I think getting another edge rusher would be nice. I think Walter Nolan would be a great player for them. I don't think they go safety with Malachi Starks. I think Jahdae Barron also could be a player that could fit really well in New Orleans. But man, the quarterback situation is rough there. They could go quarterback in round 2. They could go quarterback in round 1. But I truly think Shedeur makes a ton of sense for the Saints. He could learn under Derek Carr, learn under Kellen Moore. That's not exactly the worst situation. Has a lot of veteran leadership in New Orleans, which could help him develop as well. I think it's a good fit for both sides. I think Shedeur lands in New Orleans at 9. What do you think, Brady?
I don't think so on this one, man. This is the first one I've already disagreed on. And so here's the thing. I'm hearing that the Saints are absolutely not picking Shedeur, at least at 9. don't know how much stock to put into that, but here's the thing. The Saints in like 50 years have not picked a first-round quarterback. They did just pick Rattler last year, and I know Rattler's not a guy that you spent a ton of capital on to get. Didn't really show a ton last year, but here's what I think. I think that I know we already got the pick penciled in, so it doesn't matter, but in my opinion, I think they could go T-Mac there at 9, get a wide receiver. Their fans are going to ride if they pick a D lineman. I don't think that's happening. They've picked a ton of D linemen.
They spent a lot of money on that defensive
over
line
the
too.
last few years. I know it's a need, but I think they could go round 2. And the thing, if they don't pick Shador at 9, the next most likely pick for Shador to go is 21 to Pittsburgh. And I think that if they really felt that they needed Shador, they could pick a better player at 9 and still put together a package to move up above 21, above the Steelers, get back into the first round to take Shador maybe at 20, maybe at 18. I don't know. But even the Steelers, I'm not 100% sure. Right now, I would pencil them in as the team that takes Shador at 21, but I just don't see Shador Sanders going in the top 10, even though the Saints are handicapped. I think you can roll with Rattler. You can pick an impact player at 9. If you're bad, then you become really bad, and you just try to get Arch Manning or Garrett Nussmeier, somebody like that next year at the top of the draft with a deeper quarterback class.
100%. I think it's interesting for sure. I mean, you look at these middle rounds here between the Steelers, you either have a team that trades up in the early second to go work their way in to get him to jump the Steelers, or you have a team like the Saints that could trade back with one of these teams who want to go get a guy. It's very fascinating for sure. Heading into 10, Brady, who are the Bears picking?
Bears are in a pretty good spot here. They are not dying for an offensive lineman. They got receivers. They've got the quarterback. They've got a good defense. They can really go with best available. And you look across the board, I don't think that they go Walter Nolan. I don't think they go Mike Green. Both those guys are really, really good players to me, but there's some character concerns or some on-field stuff. I don't know if they're willing to invest the capital they have at 10. And the Bears, by the way, set up really well with 2 picks in the second round as well in that top, I believe, 10 in the second round. So 3 picks in the top 42, I think, for the Chicago Bears. But here, I think they go Malachi Starks. I think they go Starks to help that secondary out. They've invested a lot in the offense over the last 2 off seasons. Caleb Williams, Romo Dunze. Take it back 2 years ago. DJ Moore, obviously DeAndre Swift, the offensive line. I think they go with a little bit of defense here. The defense wasn't bad last year by any means, but you add Starks, who was a brilliant run defending safety. Was a little bit out of position this past year, but if you go and turn on the 2023 tape for Starks out there in center field, he was a really good coverage safety. He is extremely fast. He's got a really good track background, and he's got really high upside. So I think that Malachi Starks here at safety to the Bears. I'm not sure everyone will agree with it, but I think that that could be where they go. Like I said, they're kind of in a luxury spot right here at 10.
Yeah, they could be another team that trades back as well. I think Malachi Starks makes a ton of sense for them at safety, considering the fact that they need another safety, especially a guy that can play and fill up against the run, be over the top. I think Starks makes a ton of sense for them. At 10, heading into 11, the 49ers, who still have a stacked roster, had a lot of turnover on the defensive side of the ball, and I think they're going to be leaning heavy defense. You have 2 guys that stick out to me here, Mike Green and Jahdae Barron. I think both of these guys make a ton of sense for them. Ultimately, it comes down to what they need more. I think Green is the better prospect. We both know, Brady, that I have him in my consensus top 5. And I think he would pair so well with Nick Bosa. But positional need is more of a case here. Jahdae Barron makes so much sense for this team at cornerback. They lost Charvarius Ward. They need another corner. I think Barron, who is my cornerback 1, I believe, just him or Will Johnson is my quarterback 1. I think Barron, based on last year, makes a ton of sense for this team. 5 interceptions, 34.2 passer rating allowed. Just a really good football player. I think Barron lands with the 49ers at 11. Like I said, I could also see Will Johnson flipping with Barron and being the first corner taken, but I got Barron heading over to San Francisco.
Will Johnson on my board is 6th. Jahdae Barron on my board is 20th. And the reason Jahdae Barron is not as fast, he's not as fluid, he's not as athletic as Will Johnson. And he had a better year on the stat sheet than Will Johnson last year. Will Johnson didn't play pretty much the whole back half of the year with an injury. But if you go back and watch in 2023, when he was the defensive MVP of the national championship game, locked up Marvin Harrison in the big house, clamped up against Alabama, I believe it was Isaiah Bond that he was matched up on in the Rose Bowl. Like, this dude was locking everybody down. He's really, really good. And honestly, he's right there with Travis Hunter in terms of cornerback. Obviously, Travis gets the edge as a prospect because of what he can bring to you offensively as well. But I would have gone Will Johnson here. In most of my mocks, I've had Will Johnson to the Niners at 11. And I honestly think that would be a steal. And however far he drops in this will be a definite steal.
And
Jahdae
you
Barron.
look though, Brady, out of the teams that need cornerbacks after Travis Hunter gets picked within the top 4, top 5, you got the Panthers that would love one, the Saints would like one, and the 49ers. I think it's very realistic to think that Barron or Johnson is available for them at 11.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that they'll have their pick of either of those corners if they choose to go in that direction. I would have gone.
Who do we both have at cornerback 4? Amos?
Cornerback 4. Let's take a look going down here on my board. Oh, yeah, Trey Amos.
Yeah, so they would have to basically, with 43, they would basically either have to go cornerback there or hope that Amos or what's his name, Benjamin Morrison's available in round 2. Nice voice crack for me right there.
But yeah, I think Jahdae Barron's actually more likely throughout his career to maybe even earlier than not be shifted over to safety. I mean, he's just not a very fast boundary corner for NFL standards, but we'll see what happens over in San Fran. I would have gone Will Johnson, but I understand your thinking with Jahdae Barron. Now for the Cowboys, this one seems pretty cut and dry to me. Well, actually, you know what? No, it doesn't, because so all my mocks I keep forgetting that Tet's still on the board here, but all my mocks, I've had Tet gone by this point. I still do believe that'll happen, but we got to go off each other's picks here too. I've had Matthew Golden staying in his backyard, or staying in the Cowboys' backyard in Dallas to pair up with CeeDee Lamb. But if Tet McMillan is there and they're going wide receiver, it's got to be Tet. I really like Matthew Golden. He really turned up at the end of the year in the playoff and at just the back end of the year as a whole. But Tet McMillan is a different breed. Tet McMillan's my number 3 player, and I really think that it's a big case of overthink when it comes to him by a lot of these front offices and a lot of these scouts. I mean, he doesn't run a 4.35. That's what you're looking for from this 6'5" guy. Like, that's not what you're going to get. But he plays a lot like a Mike Evans. He plays even more to me. My comparison for him was Drake London, and Drake London to me is a hell of a football player. You look at Tet, I think he had like the 3rd most missed tackles forced in college football last year. He's shifty for his size. He moves well. Like, I don't care what the 40 time says. He looks good speed-wise for his size on the film. Great contested catch, great body control, great hands, and that's for sure. If he's here, it's a home run pick for the Cowboys at 12 to take Tet McMillan and pair him up with CeeDee Lamb.
100%. I think the Cowboys have to be leaning wide receiver or running back. At this point, Amari and Hampton doesn't make a ton of sense for teams. Like you said, Matthew Golden's been a guy that's been mocked there a lot. If Ted's available at that point, it's a lock for him to go to Dallas. Heading into pick 13, the Miami Dolphins, a team that honestly has a lot of problems right now. They need a tackle, they need interior guards, and they need a lot of defensive help. And especially with Jalen Ramsey being gone at this point, it's very, very interesting to see where they're going to go. I think Kelvin Banks is a guy I've mocked them a ton at this point. But right now, who's available, right? I think there's some other positions that they could definitely go with and fill some other needs up. Will Johnson's really starting to scream at me, Brady. He really is. He really is screaming at me. I think Will Johnson could be a guy they take a look at right now. I think Mike Green as well, Walter Nolan. I don't know if I can switch for my pick, though. It's been Kelvin Banks or bust for me for Miami. Brady, what do you think? Is Kelvin Banks going to be heading to Miami?
Yeah, I think he could. If they're going with the best tackle available at that point, though, it's Josh Simmons. I know Josh Simmons is coming off the injury. I don't like Kelvin Banks as a prospect. I don't think he looks particularly good.
A lot of people are 50-50 on him.
Yeah, I feel like he's been one of the most polarizing ones. He's got a pretty crazy range of where he could go. He could go anywhere from here to like very end of the first. And
I've even seen him reach up to 8 or 7. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean maybe. But to me, I know there's the injury stuff for Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons is number 9 for me on my board. I think he's the best tackle film wise on the draft in the draft, and just depends what you make of that patellar tendon injury for Simmons. But he looked really, really good at Ohio State, especially in 2023. That would be my pick. But if they want to go with the safer pick at tackle, I think it could be Banks, and I definitely do think they are going tackle. Now for the Colts, this one's really, really easy for me. Tight end is a huge need for them. Tyler Warren's my number 5 player. It's Tyler Warren. There's not much to it. They've got receivers. They want to figure out if Anthony Richardson's a guy or not, if he wins this competition, assuming with Daniel Jones. You got Pierce, Pittman, A.D. Mitchell out there at wide receiver. You need a tight end. You don't have a good pass catching or run blocking tight end. Tyler Warren brings you both of those things. Very physical, very dynamic player. He's not quite a Brock Bowers level tight end prospect, but that's where I'm going right here.
Yeah, Warren is another guy that really good football player. Been mocked to the Colts a ton. Another guy that's been mocked to a team a lot. Mike Green to the Falcons. I think we've talked about this so much this year with the Falcons. No pass rush whatsoever. If Green falls into their laps at 15, you have to be ecstatic as a Falcons fan. I mean, that's super exciting. I have him within my top 5. I know he's a smaller school guy, but the production's elite. The film's really good as well. Really good football player. The only reason he's a bust is because the better competition basically got to him a little bit and never necessarily lived up to the production he had against smaller schools and that type of stuff. But
I wouldn't even say that's true though. You go take a look at Mike Green. Like I saw 2 of his games that really stuck out to me. He had some trouble defending the run at times, but 2 of his games that really stuck out to me were Virginia Tech and Ohio State last season. I mean, he cooked up against Ohio State a couple of times. I mean, he had I think 2 sacks of Will Howard in that game. So
yeah, and don't get me wrong, like Division I football is Division I football. Like guys are still really good at football. That's why I think Mike Green is just such a good football player. Really, really good football player.
Yeah, I'm with you there on Mike Green. So now for the Arizona Cardinals, I think that this is going to be a D lineman. I think this is going to be another example of a safe pick because Walter Nolan to me is an awesome player. Walter Nolan's 11, but he's got these character concerns. It's not where I'm going right here.
Ooh.
I think that right here, you're going to have to go down a little bit. This is a guy that I'm a lot higher on than a lot of the consensus. I think this is going to be Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, the running mate with Mason Graham. Kenneth Grant is really, really good at D tackle on that interior. He played just as well as Mason Graham did last year. You take a look, he was really consistent after that Texas game, and I like him a lot. I think they're going with a D-line guy, and I think that Grant is just a lot safer of a pick personality-wise than Walter Nolan. And in a lot of my mocks, I'm going to let you make your pick. I don't want to sway you, but in a lot of my mocks, I've actually had Walter Nolan going here with this very next pick.
Yeah, and I think Nolan's a really good football player. I don't remember exactly where I had him ranked, but I know I had him ranked pretty high. I think he is another guy like Kelvin Banks, who you've seen go almost in the top 10, and another guy that's almost fallen out of the first round. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him on draft day. The Bengals are interesting here because we both know the Bengals have to pick defense, Brady. They just have to. They need defensive talent. I think Jihad Campbell is an unbelievable talent at the linebacker position. Not their biggest need. Walter Nolan makes a ton of sense for this team. Ezra is a guy I've mocked there in the past. You got Pierce still available, Scorden, Shamar. Yeah, I mean, from the board right now, I agree with you. I think Walter Nolan does make a lot of sense for this team. They always seem to have a guy in Cincinnati that, you know, and even if Trey Hendrickson is back, I think a duo between Nolan and Hendrickson could be really solid for this team defensively.
That's one thing I was going to say. I was going to make that point that I think edge would be a huge priority if Hendrickson wasn't coming back, but all signs right now point to them being able to work something out with him.
Yeah, I mean, they want a first-round pick for them. They're not going to be able to move him for a first. I think eventually they'll work something out. So who you got going at 18?
18 to Seattle is interesting because as you see, they could use interior O-line, but there's nobody really worth taking at 18 with the interior O-line. I think if you go down a little bit, this guy is kind of behind in terms of consensus. I like him a lot. He's a little bit of a project, kind of like one of his teammates. But wow, where's he at? We didn't take. Okay, there he is. I see him. I go back up. I see him. Oh, Michael Williams from the University of Georgia.
Hey.
I think Michael is another guy that's being overthought just a little bit. He's still a little bit raw, but we've seen him have success against Texas. We've seen him have success against Tennessee. We've seen him have success against Clemson. Really good teams, and he was on that really good defense. He's an athletic freak show, and I think that if nothing else, you're betting on traits of Michael Williams. I've got him as 22 on my board, right above his teammate Jalen Walker, I think he goes a little above that here to Seattle, especially with the defensive mind like Mike McDonald that has proven to be able to get the most out of guys. They don't really need secondary help. You've got Witherspoon over there. You've got Reek Woolen. You've got guys in the back end at safety. I think a D lineman here makes a lot of sense. You invested in receiver with Cooper Kupp. And then obviously, like I said, it's too early to take anybody on the interior line. The earliest guy that'll go on the interior is probably Tyler Booker, and I'm not even sure he goes in the first round. So Mykel Williams is my pick here for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think getting an edge rusher makes a ton of sense for them as well. I'm not sure if I go Williams there. I have Williams a little bit later in the first, but I think it's a good pick. Williams is an athlete, like you said, really good football player. 19, I think if Will Johnson's available for the Bucs, it makes so much sense for them at this point. Absolute steal if they can somehow get Will Johnson at 19. Really good football player, like we talked about earlier. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be getting a very good secondary starting to build with a pick like Will Johnson in the secondary there.
Yeah, I have Will Johnson and Jadae Barron flipped, but I think both these teams that you have them going to will be taking DBs. And you saw the Buccaneers really struggle to get off the field on third down in the pass game against Jaden Daniels and the Commanders in that wild card round. Part of that is what cost them. And I think they definitely need to revamp the secondary because Jamel Dean is getting older. He's had injury issues. Zion McCollum is kind of hot and cold. So I think cornerback is the move right here, too. Now for the Denver Broncos. I've got my pick here, but I want to explain. A lot of people, I see the argument of needing somebody at that kind of Y spot or in the slot in this offense. That could be the next thing that could unlock them. A Luther Burden, and Emeka Egbuka, a Colston Loveland. But I think that they're going running back here because running back is the other hole on this offense. And I think it's going to be Amari and Hampton. I think Hampton is going to be the pick here. You saw them with Javonte Williams, a North Carolina running back who kind of just dealt with injuries and never was really able to recover. But he showed a lot of flash. You're not helmet scouting here with Amari and Hampton. He is a really explosive runner. I got to see him play in person actually this past season, and he had some really big time runs against Georgia Tech. And I've got him as my number 19 player. Got him going right here at number 20, right around where I've got him on my board to the Denver Broncos with Bo Nix and company.
Another team that it just feels like a guy who's been mocked there so many times. Hampton makes so much sense for this team. They need a running back desperately, and Hampton would provide different levels to this offense. And it really unlocks a Sean Payton offense that he didn't get to have last year with their current running back room.
Definitely.
Pittsburgh at 21 is very interesting. Like you talked about, this is a spot where we could see Shadur Sanders. A lot of people have given me troubles by mocking them a tackle. They need a tackle, Brady. They don't have a great option at tackle that makes me feel confident about their long-term plan there. I'm going to go tackle again. Josh Simmons, a guy that we both really like, makes so much sense for this team. He's played right tackle his first year, really struggled there, but left tackle the other 2 years, then had injuries. Like you said, the tape doesn't lie with this guy. Really good football player, played great competition throughout his time at Ohio State. I think he's going to be an absolute great pick for this Steelers team. And at one point, guys, the Steelers need a good offensive line. So why not invest all their capital into it? Go get yourself an offense. I really like where their defense is at and the smaller moves they made. Go get an offensive tackle and improve that in Pittsburgh.
This one right here is the most slam dunk pick of the whole draft to me. Jim Harbaugh is going to go get a guy he coached in Colston Loveland. Wide receiver and tight end are the two main needs, as you see right there, according to PFF. All the wide receivers left are slot guys. Ladd McConkey's got that occupied over there in LA. Could go with the D lineman. I tend to not think so at this point. Tight end is a big need on this offense, and you saw it last year at times with Will Dissly out there. And I think that this is definitely Colston Loveland. This is a guy that Jim Harbaugh really, really liked at Michigan. I think that's who they go with here pretty easily.
100%. This is another pick that has been mocked a ton, makes a ton of sense. Jim Harbaugh is not going to pass on this guy. We saw him last year pick his guys. It's going to happen again. Green Bay Packers, it's very interesting here. Luther Burden, 100% in play. But Brady, I don't think they're breaking the trend with a wide receiver this year. I don't think they're going to reach in the first round for a receiver. I think that the Green Bay Packers will be going edge rusher, a guy that I really like, Donovan Ezeraku. I think Ezeraku had a great year last year for Boston College. Very good numbers. Obviously, the competition level wasn't necessarily consistently great, but Ezeraku was a producer, 14 sacks last season. I think he'd be a great get for the Green Bay Packers as they truly start to build a young, upcoming defense.
Yeah, most definitely. And I've had this in a couple of my mock drafts as well. I've had Michael Williams, I've had Jade Barron, I've had Ezra, I've had a few different guys. The Packers are one of those ones I'm not 100% sure what they'll do, because you saw the comments from Josh Jacobs that they need a wide receiver one. They've got a really young wide receiver core. They could go with Egbuka there too, I think, but I think that the defense was really an issue at times, especially with Jair Alexander not being there anymore. I
Yeah.
think that even if you don't go corner, you need to shore up the defense. And if your secondary is going to be weak, which right now it looks like it will be, you at least need to be able to rush the passer, which Azariku will help with. Now for the Minnesota Vikings, there are a couple of directions they could go here. I think Derek Harmon is definitely a possibility here for the Minnesota Vikings at the defensive interior. I'm really torn between him and one other guy who is not going to be high up on the board here, but we're hearing first round whispers about. That is Travion Henderson. Uh, Henderson is getting a lot of first round, but I saw people giving him top 10 buzz like across front offices, and that might be a
Brady, you
smoke
know I
show.
love Travion Henderson.
Yeah, I do, but I think he's going to wait a little bit longer past 24, though. I think that Derek Harmon is a game wrecker for the Oregon Ducks, and I think that that is going to be who they go with here. Taking a look at my board, I've got Harmon sitting right at 27, so a little bit below this, a little bit below 24, but he looked really good. To me, it's either him or Omar Norman Lott, who I actually think that Omar Norman Lott is a little bit better than Derek Harmon, but I think that Derek Harmon's got a little bit more, I guess you'd call it PR, a little bit more
Yeah.
buzz to his
Yeah.
name. And I think that that's going to be the pick right here, even if I kind of think Norman Lott is a little bit better of a player.
Yeah, Derek Harmon, definitely a guy that I think fits really well in Minnesota and what they want to do there. I think defensive back, if one falls into their lap in that spot, makes a ton of sense. I think they're a team that could be in on the Jalen Ramsey market, but we'll see what they wind up doing. With the Houston Texans 25th pick, Emeka Egbuka makes so much sense for this
Ooh.
team. It does. It really
I,
does.
thi-
And
I,
here's why.
I just think it's got to be an O lineman, though, man. That offensive
Listen,
line is
it does. It
horrible.
does have to be an offensive lineman, but here's the thing. Zabel here, small school guy. You whiff on this pick, it's even worse. I think Agabuka makes so much sense for this team. And you got to look at the Texans picks. So they got 58, 79, 89. Interior offensive line will be addressed 79, 89. The tackles at the 58 spot, you have Air Save from Minnesota, who I really like. There's some tackles in the second round.
I
that
get
feel
I get
good.
that. I could see this being Connerly too, maybe on a little bit
Yeah.
of a reach, but
Connerly, too.
I get
Yep.
it with Egbuka with the Tank Dell injury and him likely not being available for most of this
I mean, yeah,
season.
they need a slot guy. They really do need a slot guy. They don't have a guy that can fit in there outside of Nico Collins. But Nico Collins is
And
great.
I don't
Don't
think
get
you
me wrong.
mentioned this. I don't think you mentioned that Egbuka has chemistry with CJ Stroud already.
He does. He does have that chemistry. I actually didn't even remember that when I was going through it. That's an even better reason why it should happen. Who are they going with at
Yeah,
26?
I bet if he's there, I mean, I'm sure there's already conversations being had about the moves, and I'm sure they consult their franchise quarterback. But I think that CJ could definitely be pounding the table for Egbuka, especially with the situation with Tank Dell. So, LA Rams. This is one that's kind of
This
confusing to
should be
me.
a surefire pick for you right here.
I think I've taken the same guy most of my mocks, and I think it's going to be Jahad Campbell. I think they need a linebacker. There's no tackler, tight end worth taking right here. Probably not a corner either. And Jahad Campbell, for me, sits at 18 on my board, and I think that this would be a pretty good get for the Los Angeles Rams at what, 26, 27? What pick are we at here?
26.
26, yeah. So I think that this would be a really good move for the Rams. You get a kind of field general linebacker. Obviously, you brought in Devontae Adams at wide receiver. You got him and Puka. You got Stafford kind of trying to go for that last ride here. Offensive line still has some concerns around it, but you got Jared Verse, who you hit on off the edge last year, and we'll see with the secondary. But I think that Jahad Campbell is definitely the pick right here.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense for what they need. They got a young defense that I really like right now as well. Another pick I've been seeing a lot. I think James Pierce Jr. makes a ton of sense for the Ravens. A really, really good pass rusher. Let's just not get that wrong. The off the field concerns are real. And I think him being a one-dimensional rusher is another problem that could be something that he has to worry about in the NFL. But with a defense like the Baltimore Ravens, where they have a ton of playmakers everywhere, him being a one-dimensional pass rusher seems like the floor for him if he lands with a team like Baltimore. that has so many defensive pieces around him. I think he could fit really well. He can provide consistent pass rush on third down in the AFC, which is needed to compete on a yearly basis. I think Pierce makes a ton of sense for the Ravens, who don't have many holes in this roster. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it could be Pierce here, especially if they do decide to go edge. I kind of think they might go for Tyler Booker. They've got the luxury of a deep roster where they can afford to reach a little bit. They don't necessarily have any position that they've got to go with right here. I think that edge help definitely would be good for them, but it could be Booker, could be Pierce, could be even be Scourton. So not 100% sure what they go with, but James Pierce definitely he's got he's a weird one to me because he does some things really, really well and he's really poor in some areas. And then you got the off-field stuff. So can't complain too much about that one. Now for the Detroit Lions, I keep saying that wide receiver is a huge need for them. I don't necessarily agree with that. You got Amon-Ra and
100%.
JMO. I don't really know if that's going to be the pick here. I think that this could actually end up being Gray Zabel because there's not really an edge that's great to go with here. There's not really a linebacker that's great to go with. And you have a need at guard now all of a sudden. I believe they lost Kevin Zeitler this offseason. That is correct, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so they don't have him. Zabel is technically a tackle at North Dakota State, but he's projected as a guard and an interior guy in the NFL. I think that he is definitely going to come into Detroit and start from day one if that's the pick. And the Lions are another team. Obviously, once you get deeper in the first round, you're going to see more and more of this. But they're another team that can kind of take just based off need, and they don't really have a whole lot of holes in this roster. So that's what I'm going with as Gray Zabel.
Yeah, and he's another small school guy that, played really well there, has some upside, played multiple positions in the offensive line, can move around and give them some depth there. At 29, the Washington Commanders. It's very interesting, Brady. I'm going to scroll down the board here and pick a guy that I am very high on this offseason, Siobhan Ravel from East Carolina. I think Ravel's size and athletic abilities will translate so well to the NFL level, and he kind of reminds me of his potential future teammate in Lattimore there. I think his size and his athletic ability could be really good for the Washington Commanders, who definitely need some secondary help. We watched them get cooked a lot last year with a older secondary and some young guys that weren't necessarily great players. I think Ravel makes a ton of sense for them. They obviously could go edge as well, another need for them. But I think Ravel is a really good player. They could sneak his way into the first round.
Yeah, I actually think that's going to be Travion Henderson right there at 29. I see a lot of running back need. I see Brian Robinson, not really a floor raiser. Austin Eckler, definitely not. And I think that they could go with Henderson late in the first, not really having a ton of holes. Obviously, they got Debo at wide receiver. I could see some defensive help coming in for them, but I think if it is, I'm not sure it's Ravel because Ravel is 44 for me. I think Maxwell Hairston is a better cornerback. I think that Trey Amos is a better cornerback, but I see where you're coming from as well. Now for the Buffalo Bills, I think that they're going to go with an edge here, and I think it's going to be Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart, I honestly am not sure. I kind of let him slip through the cracks here. I'm not sure that he's going this late. I think he's going earlier than this. He's an athletic freak. If you're expecting him to be a 20 sack guy, I don't think he's ever going to be that, but I think he's going to be a guy that gets consistent pressure, and that's something that the Bills have really lacked off the edge. Von Miller, inconsistent, hurt, off the field, you name it, the last few years. AJ Epinesa hasn't really been a good pick that's panned out for them. I think Shamar Stewart off the edge makes sense to help that defensive interior and to help that defense as a whole. I think they'll go secondary later on in the draft, but Shamar Stewart is my guy right here. I think it's definitely going to be an edge, and he's the best one remaining right now for us.
Yeah, definitely a solid pick for them. The Bills need a guy there that can consistently provide pass rush. They can develop as well. The Chiefs here at 31. This is a weird pick. There's so many Chiefs fans that think Luther Burden, if he's available, is the pick. But we both know that I really like this wide receiver room if they're all on the field at the same time. And this year might be the year we get to see it at some point. We'll see if it ever happens. But I don't think wide receiver is that big of a need for this team. They need to find a tackle long term. I think Jalen Moore is an upside player, but he's still a question mark. And I think right tackle could be changing next year with Taylor's contract potentially being voided by the Kansas City Chiefs, as well as cornerback's another thing. But the one position that the Chiefs did not address this offseason, the interior defensive line. We have seen Derek Harmon mock to this team a ton of times. There's even rumors they might trade up for a tackle they really like if he's available. I think that tackle might be Josh Simmons. But back to the defensive tackle, Omar Norman Lott. You know who this kind of reminds me of, Brady?
Who's that?
Chris Jones a little bit. A pass rush heavy defensive tackle that doesn't necessarily have the run defense type of grades or the run defense production with some of the other guys ahead of him, but he can rush the passer. And that's something that if Chris Jones, I really hope his prime doesn't end here in the next 3 years, but they need to find another guy in the interior defensive line that can rush the passer. I think Norman Lott potentially could be that guy for KC.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is going to be a D lineman here, and the Chiefs definitely can go best available. I don't think it's Burton. This one, first off, I just want to put it out there. Matthew Golden's not going outside the first round, and
that's just how it shook out.
I know, but I don't think that's going to happen. All these other guys, I think that they're definitely guys that could miss out on the first round, but a lot of people give me heat for this. A lot of people have given me heat for this pick. This could be Tyler Booker at guard. I don't see an edge worthy of taking. If there's any team in the NFL that can just go best available and doesn't really have any holes, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. You got Devontae Smith out wide. You got A.J. Brown out wide. But in the slot, you're a little bit lacking. You got Jahan Dotson, who really was fine. I mean, he had enough decent contribution, but Luther Burden, I know he's got his concerns. He kind of quit in that Alabama game, but this dude is electric. His double moves are great. He's really good at bursting up the field at the top of his route. And I think that the Eagles, who knows if it happens, they could go in another direction. They're really strong at wide receiver, but they could use a big-time slot. That's exactly what Luther Burden is. He's not going to have to win at X. He's not going to have to win at Z. He will get favorable matchups in the slot, and I think that he's going to be the one here. If it's not him, here he'll be the very next pick to the Titans. So,
well, there it is, the first round mock.
Not the next pick, but 35. Sorry.
Yeah, there it is, folks. The mock here for us. Some of the Matthew Golden somehow snuck into the second round for us. Josh Connerly is a guy we've seen go in the first a lot. Nick Scorton, another guy. Trey Amos. Definitely some interesting names there, but our official Blitz Sports Media mock draft for you guys. Like I said, me and Brady will be on site for the NFL draft, so make sure you guys are staying tuned, stay updated with our Twitters. We'll be posting content for you guys that is exclusive for you guys there, providing you insights, potential trades, stuff happening and going on. If you guys are interested in more content, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for Blitz Sports Media, and me and Brady will catch you guys next time.
Yes, sir.